Hey everybody, it's Charles from HumbleMechanic.com. Today I'm going to give you guys some tips on avoiding some really common DIY mistakes when working on your car. So today cars are more complicated than they've ever been. And it's not getting any easier to do our own maintenance and own repairs on our cars. At times, even us professionals struggle with how much goes in to making what could be a very simple repair. So today I'm going to give you guys some really common mistakes that DIYers make, and more importantly, how to avoid them. Number one is being careless. At my shop, safety is priority number one. We want to make sure that when we're doing our own work on our cars, we're lifting our vehicle properly. Using the proper lift points on the vehicle, working with a jack stand instead of working under a jack, also making sure that the wheels are chocked properly and the parking brake is on. We also want to make sure that we're keeping ourselves safe by using personal protection equipment, and that can be in the form of really cool safety glasses or the more traditional kind, as well as gloves or nitrile gloves if we're working with chemicals. We also want to make sure that if we're working with anything that has asbestos in it, like brakes and clutches, we want to make sure we wear a face mask as well to keep ourselves from breathing in any of those harmful particles. Before we start the job, we want to look at the parts and chemicals that we might be using during the job. Safety glasses are probably one of the most important, yet one of the most overlooked pieces of equipment. So we want to make sure we have our glasses on, and if we need to, we want to make sure we use gloves to protect our hands, not only just from getting dirty, but from getting any chemicals on them. So be sure before you start to plan accordingly as far as safety goes. Number two, it's really easy to get in over our heads. Like I mentioned before, cars are getting so hard to work on. It's not like the old days where you could take apart a Volkswagen Beetle and put it all back together again just with the tools that came in the toolkit. A job that looks really simple may turn out to be quite a bit more complicated. There may be extra parts that have to come off, things that are hidden, one bracket in the way that prevents us from taking off the part. There's some really easy ways to help prevent us from getting in over our head. I like to take my smartphone, and if it's a job I'm doing for the first time, I'll take pictures as I go along. That way, if I can't remember how a bracket was routed or where a certain bolt went, I have photographic evidence of what I need to do. In addition to using our smartphone, there's tons of online guides and tutorials on doing just about any job out there. One thing that I always recommend on my DIY videos is make sure you watch the video first before you start. That way you can really get a grasp of how the job is going to go and maybe whether or not it's something you want to tackle altogether. Also, it's always recommended on any DIY job, have the factory service manual if you can. That'll give you all the things like torque specs and fluid capacities to make sure that we're doing the job properly. Number three is not having the proper tools to do the job. This is something that I've ran into both personally and professionally. There's plenty of jobs that look plenty simple enough, but will require a special tool in order to complete the job. European car manufacturers seem to be the best at requiring a special tool like a Torx or a triple square, and if that's not a tool that you have, it can bring a DIY project to a halt. So before we start our job, we want to take a look at all the pieces that we probably need to remove, and we want to make sure that we have the proper tools for that. Whether it's a 13mm socket, which is a really common household tool, or a specialty triple square or something like that, we want to make sure we have all the tools before starting. Again, this is where factory service manuals do really come in handy, as well as online tutorials. After a good visual inspection, if we're still not sure, we can even call our local dealership and ask them if there is any special tools required to replace this part. Here's a couple of different fasteners that the average person may not have in their household kit. We have a triple square, we have a Torx bits. These are pretty common with a standard and a Phillips head screwdriver. Number four is not following the owner's manual. There's so much information in the owner's book that a lot of people tend to overlook. With maintenance intervals getting longer and longer on modern cars, the fluids that are required are even more critical. For the most part, the fluids used in your vehicle do need to meet a certain criteria. Whether it's engine oil, brake fluid, or coolant, we want to make sure that we're using the proper fluids for our vehicle. Not using the proper fluids can result in faster engine wear or even engine breakdown. If we get the wrong oil, it may not have the proper lubricating or detergent packages built into it, and again, that can lead to engine damage. So we want to follow what the manufacturer recommends as far as fluids go for our vehicle. If you're not sure what your vehicle does require when it comes to engine oil or coolant, first refer to your owner's manual. If you can't find the information in there, it's really a good idea to call your local dealership and ask them what they use in your car. Number five, buying the cheapest part that we can find. You know, there's two really great things about doing our own car repairs. One, we save a ton of money by not having to pay someone else. And two, we get an awesome sense of satisfaction that, hey, we fixed something all on our own. But we have to be a little bit careful when it comes to buying parts. Oftentimes, the least expensive part may not be the best part for our vehicle, and oftentimes it can be kind of tricky to tell whether a part is a good quality part or just a really cheap knockoff part. If there's a huge price discrepancy from what you would maybe get from the dealership versus what you would get from the parts house, we want to take a look at those two parts and see what the difference is. Certain maintenance components, it's really important to make sure that we're not just buying the cheapest one that we can find, especially when it comes to safety related items. Now, if it's something like an engine air filter and you can save a few bucks, I say go for it. But when it comes to safety components like brakes, be really careful and make sure that you are using genuine quality parts, because certain parts may not fit properly and the brakes, for example, may not perform the way that we would expect them to. So while there's a ton of aftermarket parts that are absolutely great to use, we just want to be a little bit careful on what we're buying. Another really big mistake I see made is not having a backup plan. Having a backup plan in case something goes wrong is really important. You know, even in the professional world, jobs go sideways all the time. Think about what might happen if, let's say, you didn't get all the parts that you need, or the part you got was wrong, or maybe you don't have the right tools to do the job. These kind of things can easily result in another trip back to the store. If your car's down, that trip back to the store is going to be a whole lot more challenging. It's always good to have another means of transportation just in case you need to go back to the parts store or we need to wait a couple of days on getting another part. I'd hate for you to have to call into work on Monday morning because a job went sideways on you and you didn't have all the parts or all the tools that you needed to get your car put back together. So whether it's relying on a friend to give you a ride or just having a second car, having a plan just in case something goes wrong is really, really important. And finally, disposing of old parts properly. You know, some parts are just easily thrown away. Things like air filters and pollen filters can easily be thrown in the trash and taken out just like your normal household garbage. However, other parts you really can't do that with. Things that are saturated in chemicals are the number one thing that we don't want to just throw in the normal trash. Oil filters, fuel filters, anything that's been contaminated with a fluid doesn't really need to be thrown in the trash. We want to take extra measures to make sure that we recycle these parts. There's also parts that may have a core charge. That means we have to bring them back to the parts store. Things like starters, alternators, and vehicle batteries all typically have a core charge on them. And that means we need to take them back to the parts store. The good thing is generally we get a little bit of money back. If we're not sure how to dispose of a part we're replacing, one of the easiest things to do is ask the parts store when you're buying it, does this part need to be recycled? Can I throw it in my normal household trash? Or is there a core charge on it? And generally, they'll guide you in the right direction for proper disposal of the old parts. When it comes to things like engine oil and coolant and brake fluid and power steering fluid, any of the fluids that we use on our vehicle, we want to make sure we're taking extra care to dispose of these properly. Generally, any automotive repair facility can recycle these fluids for you. We want to make sure that we transfer them in safe containers and properly label them as old fluids. And if we're not sure our local repair facility will take them, just pick up the phone and give them a call. Let them know that you have some fluid that needs to be recycled, and almost anybody is going to be able to help you out with that. For me, I'd much rather take your old oil and recycle it for you than worry about whether it was dumped down the drain or just thrown in the trash. Alright guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. If you have any questions, comments, or DIY tips of your own, throw them down in the comments section. If you'd like to see more of my videos, head over to humblemechanic.com. You can check them all out there. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Remember to think safety first when you're working on your own car or own truck. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.